You booked an adults-only cruise picturing peace and quiet, no screaming toddlers, no water slides, just calm. And that is very likely exactly what you'll get. But here's the little mix-up nobody warns you about, and it can lead to a rather red-faced surprise. The words adult and adults only in the cruise world do not all mean the same gentle thing. So let me clear it up right away and put your mind at ease first. An adults-only cruise means, quite simply, no children on board. That is all it means. No little ones, a calmer pace, a quieter ship. If that's what you booked, breathe easy, that's what you're getting. But then there's a whole other category out there. Cruises marketed to adults in a very different sense. And if you've ever heard whispers about upside-down pineapples on cabin doors and wondered what on earth that was about, well, you're about to find out. Because knowing the difference is how you make absolutely certain the cruise you book is the one you actually want, and not a week of blushing. Now, I promise you this whole video is warm, tasteful, and genuinely useful, delivered with a smile and maybe a raised eyebrow, but never anything to make you uncomfortable. My only goal is that you, a sensible grown-up, book the trip you meant to book. Stay with me and keep a pen handy, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what these different cruises are, the ones to know about, the ones you might actually love, and how to be 100% sure you're booking the right one. Take a picture of the screen at the end, and you'll have it all. And if we're just meeting, I'm Margaret, your cruise companion, and I make these for those of us cruising after 60 who like to know exactly what we're getting ourselves into. Let's clear the whole thing up. Let me lay out the 3 things the word adult can actually mean on a cruise, because once you can tell them apart, you'll never be caught out. The first, and by far the most common, is the one we just covered, adults only, no children, full stop. This is Viking, this is Oceania now, this is the peaceful, grown-up calm most of us are after. If a cruise says adults only, or 18 and over, it simply means the little ones stay home, nothing more scandalous than that. So the vast majority of the time, when you see those words, you can relax completely. It's about peace, not anything else. I remember a dear friend of mine, sharp as a tack, but new to all this, who very nearly talked herself out of a lovely Viking cruise because she'd overheard someone at her bridge club darkly hinting that adults-only ships were, and I quote, not respectable. She'd got the whole thing tangled up in her head. When I explained that adults only just meant no children, the same as an adults only floor at a nice hotel, the relief on her face was something to see. She sailed, she loved it, and she came home the most enthusiastic Viking convert you ever met. So if anyone's ever muddled you with a knowing look and a whisper, let me untangle it plainly. An adults-only cruise is simply a grown-up, peaceful ship. That's the whole story. The other kinds have entirely different names, and you'll know them when you see them because we're about to cover them. The second kind is what's called a clothing optional or nudist cruise. Now, these absolutely exist. They're a real and long-running thing, and they are exactly what they sound like. Companies charter entire ships or parts of ships for guests who prefer to sunbathe and socialize without their swimsuit. There's one well-known operator that runs a big nudist sailing in the Caribbean each winter aboard a mainstream ship, and even a nude tall ship adventure over in Europe. And here's the reassuring part. You cannot possibly book one of these by accident. They are sold only through their own specialist companies, with very clear names and descriptions, and they have their own rather firm rules. A towel on every seat, please, and cameras strictly forbidden. So there's no danger of turning up to what you thought was a quiet Caribbean cruise and finding everyone in their birthday suit. But now you know the term, so if you ever see clothing optional in a cruise description, you'll understand precisely what it means and can sail right past it with your dignity and your swimsuit fully intact. And I'll add, because someone always wonders, the folks who enjoy these sailings are by all accounts perfectly lovely, ordinary people who simply prefer a tan without the tan lines. It's a real community with real manners. And the operators who run the clothing optional cruises are quite particular about keeping them respectable and separate from anything raunchier. So if it's genuinely your cup of tea, no judgment here at all, sail off happily. And if it isn't, which for most of us it isn't, you now have one more thing you can chuckle knowingly about at your next dinner party. Either way, you're better informed than you were 5 minutes ago. And the third kind is the one behind all those cheeky pineapple rumors, the lifestyle cruise, which is the polite industry term for a swingers cruise. Yes, these are real too. Whole ships get chartered by companies with names like Bliss, Desire, and Temptation, filled with several thousand adults who are, shall we say, there to make new friends in a very particular way. And that upside-down pineapple you may have heard about? In that world, it's a quiet little signal on a cabin door, on a shirt, that someone is, let's just say, open to company. Now, I'm not here to judge a soul. We're all grown-ups, and everyone's entitled to their fun. But I am here to make sure you don't book one thinking it's a normal romantic getaway for you and your spouse. And once again, the good news, you truly cannot stumble onto one of these unawares. They're couples only, 21 and over, sold exclusively through their own companies, and marketed in terms that leave absolutely no doubt about what you're signing up for. So the pineapple isn't something to fear. It's just a piece of worldly knowledge, and now it's yours, so you can smile knowingly and move along. I will say, and this genuinely made me laugh when I learned it, the reason you may have heard the pineapple mentioned in connection with ordinary cruises at all is that the poor, innocent pineapple has become such a running joke that some perfectly respectable people now avoid decorating their cabin doors with 1. Lest the neighbors get entirely the wrong idea. Can you imagine a lifetime of loving pineapples, and now you can't hang a cheerful one on your door without a stranger knocking to, introduce themselves? So, consider this my public service announcement. If you're the sort who likes to decorate your cabin door, and many lovely cruisers do, perhaps choose a nice seashell or a flamingo instead. Save the pineapple for the fruit bowl. You'll thank me. So there's the reassurance, plainly. You are not going to accidentally end up somewhere you didn't intend. But now let me turn this around, because it's not all about what to avoid. There is a whole wonderful world of themed cruises out there that a great many of us over 60 absolutely adore. And knowing about these is where the real fun begins. Let me start with the one I get asked about most, cruises for single seniors. If you're traveling solo, whether you've always been single or you're widowed or divorced, there are cruises designed especially for mature solo travelers. They come with discounts that soften that dreaded single supplement, built-in meet and greets, dinners arranged so you're never eating alone, and a warm, easy, grown-up atmosphere for making friends, and yes, sometimes a little more than friends. There's no pressure and no awkwardness, just good company among people in exactly your situation. For the solo senior who worried cruising alone might feel lonely, these themed sailings are a joy, and a very different, gentler thing than that pineapple business. And let me be practical about how to find them, because they're not always obvious. Some cruise lines run their own solo traveler programs and dedicated single cabins, the smaller, well-priced staterooms built for one, which spare you that awful single supplement where a lone traveler pays nearly double. Other single sailings are organized by specialist travel companies who gather a whole group of solo cruisers together for the week. Either way, the magic ingredient is the arranged get-togethers, a hosted cocktail hour on the first evening, shared dinner tables, group excursions, so that from day one you have a friendly face and a place to belong. If you're newly on your own and nervous about that first solo trip, this is the gentlest, warmest way to begin, and I've heard from so many of you who did it and never looked back. Then there are the music cruises, and oh, these are marvelous. Whole ships chartered around a kind of music, and the lineups are the real thing, not a tribute act. There's a famous smooth jazz cruise that's been called the greatest party at sea, sailing on a lovely mid-sized ship. There's a straight-ahead jazz cruise for the purists. There's a wonderful New Orleans jazz sailing. And best of all, for many of us, there are big band cruises with nightly dancing and 1940s themed evenings, and decades cruises built around the music of our youth. The 50s, the 60s, the soul and the doo-wop and the disco. Imagine a whole week at sea dancing to the songs you courted your sweetheart to, surrounded by people who love them just as much. For the music lover after 60, there is honestly nothing better. And here's the thing that surprises people. about these music charters. They are so much more than a concert. Because the whole ship is given over to the theme. The artists aren't locked away on a distant stage. They're wandering the decks, having breakfast near you, joining the trivia, chatting at the bar. You end up feeling less like an audience member and more like you've been invited to a week-long house party with your musical heroes. The dancing goes on properly into the night. The crowd all shares your taste and your era. And there's a camaraderie you just don't find on a regular sailing. Do be aware they can cost a bit more because you're paying for that world-class lineup as well as the cruise, and they sell out early to devoted fans, so book ahead. But for a milestone birthday or an anniversary, a music cruise built around the songs of your life is the kind of trip you'll still be talking about years later. There are wine cruises, especially the lovely river sailings through the vineyards of France and Portugal with tastings and experts and the most beautiful scenery. There are cruises built around faith with services, fellowship, and like-minded company, which so many of you have asked me about. And there are the LGBTQ cruises, run by well-established operators who charter entire ships for a warm, welcoming, celebratory week. Wonderful for our gay and lesbian friends and family who want to travel among their own community. Whatever lights you up, food, faith, music, dancing, there is very likely a themed cruise built around it, and finding your people at sea is one of the great pleasures cruising can offer. Now here's the part that actually protects you, and it's the practical heart of this whole video. How to make absolutely sure you book the right cruise and not a surprise. Because while you can't accidentally book a nudist or a lifestyle cruise directly, there is one genuine way people get caught out, and it's worth understanding. It's called a charter. Here's what happens. A themed company, a music festival, a lifestyle group, an affinity club will buy out an entire mainstream ship for a week, the whole thing, and run their own private event on it. So a ship you know and love could, on one particular week of the year, be sailing as something entirely different, closed to the general public. Now, you generally won't be sold a ticket to a private charter through the normal channels, but it pays to be aware, especially if you're booking an unusual date or noticing a sailing that seems mysteriously unavailable or oddly priced. So here is exactly how to protect yourself, and it's simple. First, read the full description, not just the headline. The real nature of a cruise is always spelled out if you actually read it. The words clothing optional, lifestyle, couples only, 21 and over in that particular combination, these are your signals. Second, if a price or a sailing looks unusual for a ship you know, ask straight out, is this sailing a private charter or a themed event? Third, and this is where a good cruise travel agent earns their keep all over again, they will know instantly what every sailing actually is and steer you true. And fourth, when you want a themed cruise on purpose, a music one, a singles one, look under the theme or enrichment section of the cruise line's website or search the theme directly, because most of these are run by outside organizers, not the cruise line itself. A few minutes of reading or one question to your agent, and you are guaranteed to get exactly the week you wanted. Let me give you the one real-world scenario where this matters, so it's concrete. Say you spot a sailing on a ship you adore on an odd week, and the price is strangely high, or the booking simply won't go through the usual way. That's exactly when a themed charter is the likely explanation. The whole ship has been bought out by an organizer for their event, and it's closed to the general public. It's not a trap so much as a locked door. You can't get in even if you tried, but it explains the mystery, and it saves you the confusion of thinking something's wrong with your booking. A quick call to the line or your agent, is this sailing available to the general public, and the whole thing is cleared up in 30 seconds. That's the entire secret to never being caught out. Just ask the question, and let the people who know the answer keep you on the right ship. So let me hand you the whole picture clean, and this is your moment to take a picture of the screen. The word adult on a cruise can mean three very different things. Adults only, which simply means no children, and is what most of us want. Clothing optional or nudist, which is real but clearly labeled and impossible to book by accident. And lifestyle. the polite word for swingers, behind all those pineapple rumors. Also real, also couples only, and unmistakably marketed, so no surprises there either. And then the wonderful themed cruises worth seeking out on purpose, singles sailings for mature solo travelers, music and big band and decades cruises, wine cruises, faith cruises, and LGBTQ charters. And to book the right one every time, read the full description, watch for the private charter catch, ask your travel agent, and use the themes section when you want a theme on purpose. You know, so many of you have written to me a little embarrassed to ask exactly these questions, worried about booking the wrong thing, and I gathered all my honest, plain-spoken guidance on choosing the right cruise into one place. No question too awkward. The Insider's Playbook, along with the full planner, makes up the Senior Cruise Companion Collection. It's the written version of everything we talk about here. The link is down in the description, and there's a code on your screen for those of you watching on the television. It's there if it would help, and only if you want it. But here's the heart of it. There is no such thing as a silly question when you're spending your hard-earned money and your precious time. Knowing what all these words really mean doesn't make you nosy or naive. It makes you a savvy, worldly traveler who books with confidence and never gets a nasty or a giggly surprise. So the next time you see the word adult on a cruise, you'll know exactly which kind it is. You'll smile to yourself, and you'll book precisely the week you were dreaming of. That, my friends, is how a grown-up does it. I'm Margaret, your cruise companion. Book the right one, and I'll see you on the next one.